Manuela, how are you doing today?
Hi, good evening. I'm very well, thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Emanuela is going to break insurance down for all of us today, so you guys should stay tuned. It's already 7, so we'll be kicking things off really quickly. We have a lot to cover today, right? And one of the flow of the conversation is quite different from the other, events that we've been having so far, right? Typically, the events would start off with, maybe Itunu or someone in the team essentially breaking down some of the testimonials from customers, and we'll dive into Keble offerings and break that down, with financial projections, with cost implications and the likes. Today we're taking a different approach, so you're not going to hear my voice a lot. You're probably going to hear it maybe in the first 15 minutes or so, and I would introduce Emanuela into the group, right? One thing that it's also important for conversations like this is you can ask as many questions as you want to ask, and we'll be able to provide some context, right? And answers that would obviously help to provide the right information that you need to make your own decisions at the end of the day. And I'm aware that this is a wide array of customers in different locations. So where it doesn't really matter, your location, you can always reach out to us. If you have questions, super helpful, we'll be able to answer it. So really open to as much questions as we can to make these conversations a little bit more interactive. And so far we've been getting, I think, almost 30 minutes on each block of the conversations that we've been doing so far are focused on just questions. So I'm happy to continue that tradition. Now, in the comments, in the chat section, you will see a lot of, you see our DBC, you see our community manager, put things there. It's just to encourage some activity there, in case there are information that we want to share, you will see that there. We do have a WhatsApp community, and we do have, and we have these events almost every two weeks, just to have, one-on-one interaction with the team. Before I start, I'd just like to introduce myself because I've been talking. I noticed that some people are new and are not familiar with my face. So let me not assume anything. So my name is Jose Maria Golana. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Keble, right? We'll start off with a breakdown of what Keble offers, some of our offerings that are suited for you right now that we're pushing at the moment, and we'll now move over to the insurance section, and where Emanuela will help us to break some things down and why we keep our property safe, why it's also important to keep property safe, and why when you're owning any slot or unit through us, it's going to be covered and it's going to sort of protect you long term, right? Because everything that we do in Keble is just focused on how do you build your wealth long term. So I'll kick things off, right? What is Keble, right? So when you think of Keble, you have to think of real estate, right? It's really a one-stop shop where we are trying to provide as much opportunities as possible to anybody that is interested in owning or building wealth in real estate, right? So whether you're thinking of buying your first land, or you're thinking of buying your first house, or you're thinking of some income generating assets that continuously yield monthly income for you, this is the spot that is perfect for you, right? Keble is really focused on how do we break down the barrier of real estate and provide you with high yielding assets that you can build wealth with, right? So far, you could see that we have assets in the UK, and hopefully by the end of this month, we should be launching some assets in Dubai as well. So if you're interested in not just building in Nigeria, but owning assets outside the country, we're going to be pushing that really soon. We've done over 70 properties across different regions, right? So this is not something that we're just starting. This is something that we typically have done and scaled through, right? We've had partnerships with several developers, most notably Mr. Africa. And I think they have, in terms of location, they're probably in over 10 to 15 countries at the moment. And some of the offerings that we have right now actually, Mr. approved and government approved assets as well. Current value of the assets is probably not of over $50 million. And the user is constantly growing. I think right now we're probably at 26,000, so things are moving up. We have more people joining the fold. And I think that's really the important thing. And you guys are coming in at the earliest point where we're telling our story. And, and the story is not just, there's always room for more. There's always room for you as well. So if you're thinking of buying assets, you're thinking of, getting into real estate, for the earliest people and for the people that, have built a lot of portfolio, this is also an easier way to actually scale that on your own end. We have 3 core offerings at the moment when you're thinking of owning property in the co-ownership side. So I'm just going to dwell on that at the moment. We've broken down almost all of these offerings. So if you missed out on some of the initial events that we've had before, right? That is fine. You can, if you're interested in any of these offerings, you can also give a shout out on the chat and someone will be there to assist you on that front. But just to touch on a couple of things. So we have Buckingham, it's in the mainland Yaba. We have Ibudubura, which is on the island, and we have Nov, which is in Ibadan, right? All of them have different price points. For instance, Buckingham is focused on, closer to the business location. So we talked about, areas that have a density of businesses. So what can happen there? You see that lounges are being created. You see that business meetings, business events, corporate events are there as well. And that creates enough activity that would benefit whoever is owning an asset in this estate, right? It's a very good location. I think more people should actually, own a piece of this. The minimum you can own per slot is not of 20 million at this point. It's a 200 million naira asset, right? And you can start paying small with 1.6 million. So you don't have to, if you don't have the 20 million all at once, you can actually spread that payment in at your own pace. We have Ibudubura. This is our Lakwe Resort property. In this property, you can start off with 350K and you own a slot in this location as well. And we have No, which is in Ibadan, right? Ibadan, it's the way I look, I've been to Ibadan multiple times this year, and it's always fascinating, every time I go there. One of the things I've noticed is the daily influx of individuals. The train station has become a channel, a medium for daily activities. Earlier in the year, if I wanted to book a train ride from Lagos to Ibadan, I can easily book something, that morning and leave, right? But I noticed something that you can't even, right now, you can't even make that mistake because there'll be no seats available. It's completely booked. So what's happening is that people are changing the alternative route, whether it was a ride to go to Ibadan has drastically changed. And there are more attractive things happening there. And that gives an alternative for people looking for hospitality, people looking for businesses, people looking to move, all of that is now driving from Lagos to Ibadan. And that is, as Lagos is growing, Ibadan is also growing as well. And you can also see, certain returns, especially in emerging places, are much higher, when you look at that from that lens. So Buckingham is here. I think I mentioned is a 2-bedroom apartments. There are a couple of things that you see. I mentioned the prices here. I also want to note that the annual rental income that you can generate for owning a slot is 2 million, right? And that can also build every single year. So it's not just a situation whereby this is 2 million for 1 year and that's it. These are prices that continuously grow as well. I think in the last conversation, we highlighted the progression of the capital appreciation for these assets. Between 2020 to date, asset prices have grown by over 300% in terms of value. And also in terms of rental increase is over 160% at the moment between that same timeline. So you're seeing that it's not just stuck in one price point. One of the coolest thing about this is it allows you to own a piece of a high value asset, right? Without stressing too much about it. So I think if you're looking at neighborhoods, if you're looking at, imagine you owning a piece of somewhere in Banana Island or Eco Atlantic, we're working on that, by the way. It just shows that you can actually build your portfolio in a way that otherwise wouldn't have been possible. When you think about it, it's like when you think about, oh, how do I get to Banana Island? You're thinking of, oh, I need, $1 billion to even start the conversation. But what if you don't? I think that's where the value comes in. Budwara is also Lakwe Lakes and Golf Estates. Very serene location, serviced, has top-notch facilities. You know that there was a lot of thought process that was imputed into this estate. It's almost sold out at the moment. So if you have questions on this, you can reach out to us as soon as you can. And this one is slightly much more cheaper than the Buckingham. So its starting price is 350K per month, and you can build out your equity from there. In terms of the yearly payments, you can make as high as 500,000 naira on these assets every single year. Nove was the first co-ownership project we launched. That got sold out, but we got a lot of requests from people that wanted to still own a piece of Nove, so we launched Nove 2. The idea is that it's still the same assets, obviously in a different unit, yielding the same return. So if you're a Nove investor, I think we gave a couple of updates, was it last week? Yeah, we gave updates on the construction updates. If you're a Nove investor, you can say hi. And where it's going rapidly. I think construction deadline is due for April next year. So you guys are the first set of owners that will be having, on this platform. So congratulations to you guys. The pace has been really good. I like the project a lot. I like the location a lot. Most people that bought in already knew the location well, knew Bodija, and they understand the value there. So if you're interested in this, you can also let us know. Great location. The starting price is 511,000, and you can build that up over the next 12 months. One thing to note is that for Nove and Buckingham, you have the option to actually stay for free. I think you have 5 nights a year for free. Now you can use that for your own events. You want to bring your group of friends together, or you can also use that for, the vacation with, friends or with family. Someone said that he wants to monetize the 5 days and you just make the money because he's not in Nigeria and he doesn't have any family, and that's okay, right? But the idea is that you can, as the owner, and that's the point of some of these assets we are bringing. It's not just in a screen. We want you to actually use it, for something personal. So if it means sleeping in the location, right? Imagine you having like 5 different locations. You have like 5 in Lagos, 5 in Ibadan, 5 in Abuja. You can decide that, okay, I'm moving to Abuja next week to spend some time in one of my assets. So I think that value, that utility from owning a property, right, without dealing with all the hassle is very valuable, so yeah, like I mentioned, right, I just wanted to breeze through the flow. Questions can come after, but I noted that, okay, I just want to spend maybe 15 minutes of your time talking about the offerings, letting you guys know what we do and how we do it. If you want more information, I think we have, you can ask the questions on the chat and leave your number or leave your email, and we'll follow up with you as well. On that note, I would like to introduce a very special person into the, I see people clapping. Please clap, please clap, please clap. AXA Mansard, one of the things that, before I bring Emanuela in, if you don't know AXA Mansard Insurance, right, you probably have seen their billboard somewhere. You probably have seen them in one of their videos. They're not a small company, right? And one of the things that we wanted to do was to make sure that protection was at the forefront of every single thing that we are pushing out. So all of these properties that you're seeing, right, we want you to own it for life and own it with peace of mind, right? And we're looking for a partner that would exemplify that and will provide us with the ability to actually push this even more, right? So not just in properties in Lagos, but in Ibadan, in Abuja, and beyond. And AXA Mansard was perfect for this. So you're going to be learning why protection matters, you know, from the horse's mouth, actually. It's not, that's why I mentioned that I won't be talking as much, you know, today. And this is Emanuela. She's the head and personal lines and fleets underwriting, right? She's going to be breaking things down to the barest minimum, whereby everybody would understand why protection is important, how it works, what happens, how do we pay the premium, when there is an issue, what happens, all of those questions. This is where, you know, we break it down. So with no further ado, Emanuela, thank you so much for coming in. I'll leave the floor to you. Can you hear me, Emanuela? Let me just be sure.
Yes, I can. Good evening, everyone. I can hear
Good
you.
evening. Good evening. Welcome, 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 welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Please confirm that we can see me as well.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Once again, my name is Emanuela Eniola Faule, and I work with AXA Mansard. At AXA Mansard, we insure property, we insure lives, we give access to investments, and you know, we do all of that. We also have the health insurance arm of the business. But today I'm here to speak to us about why protection matters in the real estate space and exploring insurance, you know, as a shield for your property investment. So everything we're going to be talking about today would be, you know, protection of our investments and, you know, how insurance comes into play in this part. Now, I mean, real estate has proven time and time again that it is one of the oldest and most trusted wealth building vehicles in the world, right? I mean, financial reports have proven this. People who have keyed into opportunities in the real estate space can also, you know, give testimonies to certify this. But one thing we also miss out is that, as you know, as big as real estate is in the wealth building sector, it's unfortunately also is one of the riskiest if you leave it unprotected, right? And so in the real estate space, insurance is supposed to be seen as that sort of invisible shield that protects wealth and not just seen as an additional expense in, you know, what is being invested into the real estate. Now, today we are going to be, you know, Keble makes access to real estate investments seamless. Now, what insurance will do, what AXA Mansard will do, is to ensure that those investments remain secure, no matter what life throws at us, you know, whatever, no matter the circumstances, no matter what the unfortunate event is. Nobody prays for dilemmas. Nobody prays for unfortunate incidents to happen. But when they do happen, insurance is usually there to be some sort of safety net to back up, you know, the investment that has been extensively, you know, poured into. Now let's look at the real estate investors' dilemma, right? Now, like I said, real estate is one of the most trusted pathways to creating wealth, right? People who have made it big, who have their names on Forbes 100 list. When you look at their portfolios, you would always find real estate as some of the things that they've always ventured into. And like I said, it's one of the most vulnerable asset classes because, one, it is exposed to multiple risks. We're talking fire, we're talking flood, we're talking collapse, we're talking tenant defaults, we're talking theft, liability claims. And some of these things have happened that we've seen around. We've heard of fire incidences, you know, within the space, and we've seen how it crumbles people, how it crumbles investments. Now, in this part of the world, we've been lucky to be able to live a life that is void of natural disasters. Luckily for us, amongst all the things that we've been blessed with, natural disasters isn't one of them, beautifully. But there's also a need to look at the topography of the land that we live upon. And if you look at some axes, especially in Lagos, where they are prone to flood, we've seen videos, we've seen pictures. I don't know anyone who has experienced it, and God forbid I know anyone, but people who have experienced it will tell you firsthand that it is one of the most terrible things you would invest in. It's one of the most terrible things that would happen when you've put money, some sort of capital into something like that. And insurance comes in to cover liabilities like that, because insurance covers for flood on properties. Now, when you look at income reliance, right, especially for those who invest into real estate for the rental income, which is very common these days, and when you also key this into the rising cost of homes in Lagos today, the hike in rental prices is mind-blowing. Sometimes I wonder how we got there, but it's also a testament to what real estate can do, how it is very unpredictable. It is a very unpredictable sector. When you also, sort of infuse it into the hospitality business, there's also that part. Now, when you look at income reliance, real estate has to be one of the very big deals in income reliance. Now, when a property gets burnt, when it collapses, there is going to be a stall in that income that you've relied upon to come in. And in some of the packages that the insurance businesses have been able to infuse the property insurances, you would see that there are some availabilities for loss of rent. And for some other businesses, you would see policies like business interruptions. This will speak to those who use their properties for Airbnbs, for short-let rentals. You see business interruption. Business interruption is supposed to, give you some sort of financial recovery when your business has had a stall due to an unfortunate incident. Now, when we also look at one of the dilemmas for real estate investors, you would tell that it is extremely capital intensive. One property can cost, your entire life savings. I mean, we've seen the prices of homes in Lagos today, and whew, I don't know if to say I'm proud of where we are, or I'm gagged. Like, how did we get here? I remember 2-3 years ago, we used to see prices of maybe homes, maybe 50 million, and then we used to say, oh, that's not bad, or that house is cheap. Or even 50 million, there was that house is heavy. But now you're saying 550 million. I mean, when you're 1 billion naira, and we're like, how did we get there? But I mean, that is also a testament to the growth, the rapid growth that comes with real estate investment. And it's also to tell you the capital that goes into it. Whether you're buying a landed property, you're buying an already built property, you're remodeling a property, you're reconstructing one. Whatever it is that you're doing in the real estate space, it is capital intensive. And if you do not protect that capital, what then happens is when an unfortunate incident happens, which, because of insurance apathy in Nigeria, where we have a God forbid mentality, but this is not a God forbid situation. They happen. We've seen them. They will continue to happen, unfortunately, for things like this. But insurance is there again to be that safety net, to be that peace of mind that comes with, investing your capital into the real estate space, knowing that if something happens, there's some sort of backup plan that exists for you. Now, because it is location dependent, real estate really is location dependent, especially for diasporal investors. You do not see where you're investing. You trust the person you're investing with. You trust their suggestions. You trust that they've also put their money into where would yield. Now, because of this, you also need, because of that uncertainty, right, with your investment, you need insurance as a backup plan. And now without insurance, one unfortunate event would entirely wipe out everything you've put into place, all your savings, especially, for people like me, if I want to start a real estate a company now, is my entire property, is my entire life savings I'm going to have to invest in that. So for people like me, it's very, very important. And honestly, for anyone within any income bracket, insurance has to be in place. Whether you are renting the property, whether you own the property, whether you're renting, or whatever the case might be, real estate and insurance must combine. Now, what really is insurance? Let's kind of unmask what insurance is. Now, back in the day when insurance started, insurance is an old age business. When it started, it was really people, who came together to say, we do businesses together, right? We buy goods from XYZ place and we ship them in. But let's come together as a people. Let's come together as a community. Let's have some like a community purse where we contribute into this purse on a regular basis. And if one of us suffers an unfortunate incident, we're able to take out of this purse to compensate that person. That was how insurance started. That was the mindset around it. So it was the coming together of the many to cater for the unfortunate incidents of the few. Now, it is now become a risk transfer tool. Now you shift your financial responsibility for any unforeseen circumstances to an insurer that can absorb it, which is why, with the new insurance acts that has been signed into place by the president, it has made room that whatever insurance company is going to participate in the insurance space must have that risk appetite, that capital, that solvency to be able to absorb the cost of claims when they come. So insurance is not really just about paying claims. It's about, giving some sort of financial inclusion and financial backing when it comes to, asset management, life management, and property insurances. It is also an edge against capital erosion. Like we said, insurance is, real estate is very capital intensive, right? So ensuring that your net worth doesn't collapse. If you've invested into real estate, you've created some sort of net worth for yourself. Now you have to protect that net worth such that it doesn't collapse from what it is to something you no longer recognize. Now, it is an income stabilizer. Like I said, for property insurances, we've been able to, understand the market over time and be able to cover instances like loss of rent in property insurances. So if that is where, your major income is heavy on, you're able to still enjoy that to a certain level until your property is back up and running and you can continue to enjoy the the rental income on that property. Now it boosts confidence to another level. Insurance is a confidence booster. It is, let's use the motor insurance, for example, especially when you have a comprehensive insurance, you're not entirely bothered when you're driving. Of course, safety comes first, but when you're driving and somebody hits your vehicle, there's the first reaction, which is anger, of course. But when you have a reliable insurance partner that has covered you, you're not on the road or in the middle of the road, pulling shirts, removing ties, trying to break the other person's glass. There's that confidence. There's that confidence that it gives you to know that your finance or your assets that you've insured is secured. And that is how insurance comes into the real estate space as well. It's a confidence multiplier. If you're even trying to resell your property, you know that, okay, this property that I've put in the market, it is insured, it is. And another thing that, with AXA, what we do, especially in the real estate spaces, we don't just insure the property, we also give advices on the risk. We have a risk survey team that, goes to the property, assesses the property, looks at, risks that are likely to happen and give advices to the owners on how they can mitigate those risks so that they do not eventually happen. And even if they do happen, the loss is very minimal. That way you can recover quicker than, the other person who doesn't have this advice, doesn't have this insight, or doesn't have this insurance. So that confidence is what also comes with it. So, when we think of insurance and real estate, think of that invisible foundation. When you lay the blocks, when you put in the pipes, it's that invisible foundation beneath that building that you do not see, but it then holds everything up. Let's look at the international space now, because as Jose Maria mentioned earlier, they're already, there are investments in UK, they are looking to launch in Dubai. And now let's look at how smart investors protect their assets in the Western world. Now, when you look at Europe, when you look at USA and Asia, they've been able to integrate insurance to some level that is really outstanding. When we've been coming to the African continent, they do something very beautiful in South Africa. South Africa has very beautiful insurance embedment in their real estate space as well. For example, in the UK and the US, where you have landlord's insurance, now this is standard practice. If you own a building in the US or in the UK and it's for rental purposes, you must have an insurance that not only covers the building, it covers loss of rent, and it covers liability to third persons, liability to your tenant, liability to a guest. Yes, the way insurance is built, if a guest walks into your home and the guest suffers an incident in your home that causes damages to the health of the guest, or property damage, or injury or death to the guest, you are liable for that damage. And that is where insurance comes into play to help you, cushion the effect of that damage to you. You also see the short-term rental insurance now in the market spaces like Dubai and in Spain, where you have short-term rental come up quickly. And this is on the back of the tourism activities that have grown over the years in Spain, in Dubai. I mean, we've seen the guys in Barcelona, try to they've protested, right, on the influx of tourists in Barcelona that has then increased the rental value of properties for Barcelonians that live there. We saw them, come out in their numbers to protest against this. Now, tourism is good, but then there's also a need to make sure that your tourism doesn't affect the locals or the original inhabitants of the community or of the space. And so when you look at what they've done in Spain, they've tailored their products such that Airbnb covers for even guest liabilities. Now, two major hazards that we look at in insurance is the moral hazard and the physical hazard. Now, on a property, you can usually tell what the physical hazards will be. You're looking at fire. If it's a location that is prone to earthquake, you know that there's earthquake incident likely to happen. But when you look at moral hazard, especially in the short-term rental business sector, where you have a lot of people coming into the property, different personalities, different persons, different moral habits, different personalities, and all of that, there is a need for you to also put into place that the contents of the property you're renting out. There's a need to also cover that, and that's where you see extensions on the property investment, on the property insurance, such as the guests damage and income disruption, again on that part. Now, when you look at political and catastrophic cover, which is after NSAS, which happened in 2020, we can link NSAS to what happened. We look at Circle Mall, where Circle Mall was shut down for quite a number of months, or maybe even years after the NSAS incidents. People who owned stores in that particular part of the country couldn't function. They couldn't make their daily income. There was that unfortunate incident that happened to them. Now, in cases like this, where there are political unrest, we call it SRCC in the insurance space, which is also known as strike, riot, and civil commotion. When there have been damages to your property, there have been damages to your assets as it is, whether it brings in income, whether you live in it, whether you rent it out, whatever it is that you do with the property, insurance is also there to back up for that loss. And then institutional best practices. I mean, the real estate investment trust globally, if you do not have insurance, there's no way you can really function within that space. So all of these have shown that insurance is not just a prerequisite, it's an institutional capital in the real estate space. The same way you bring out the money to buy the property, the money that you take out to buy insurance is also that investment that you do not even know you need until it's then needed. Now, the diaspora reality check, right? For those who, for investors who live abroad, the risk is a lot more magnified, right? And that is because their eyes and their ears are not really where the property is. Now, insurance comes into standing as that ear and that eyes for you. Now, oversight gaps that would be in these spaces, a lot of people who own properties abroad usually have to rely on third parties, maybe agents, maybe estate managers, maybe caretakers, and some of them who are in the habit of, fraudulent behaviors, and you also see the likelihood of mismanagement on properties. That is why in picking your real estate partner, in picking your insurance partner, due diligence must be done. You must know who you are working with. You must know that integrity is at the core of what they do as a business. Now, there are also the regulatory blind spots. Now, not knowing local laws is a big deal. Following the Naira Act that was, implemented very recently, you would see that occupiers liability is a mandatory insurance for public buildings. Now, public buildings includes any building that is occupied by tenants, any building that is used for hotel purposes or Airbnb or rental, any building that is used for churches, for mosques, supermarkets, gym, anything that is not for personal use, as long as it has more than one floor, it is mandated by the federal government that you have an occupier's liability insurance on that building. Now, if you do not own one, you stand to face a minimum fine of 1 million naira or 12 months imprisonment. Sometimes you would enjoy both. Depending on the judge that is, looking into your case, right? So why go through so I go through all of that, when your insurance is just there and for very little amount of money, right? The insurance company protects you from facing all of these blind spots or regulatory issues. There's also the sublet surge. Geez, the demand for Airbnb is booming time and time again. And you see the real estate space, aligning themselves, aligning their learnings every day to meet this demand. Sometimes before now, if you want to book an Airbnb space, you would have been thinking of where to book, say months before or weeks before. But with the way they've evolved over time, if I want an Airbnb tonight, all I need to do is go to selected apps and, speak to whoever manages them. And I can get an Airbnb available tonight. That has showed you the surge, the demand. There's been a lot more demand than I think even the market is able to cater for, in all honesty. But it shows the potential that is at the back of real estate investment. Now, for where you have surplus short, where demand is very high, you would have frequent turnover. Now, accidental damages are very high. Of course, guest liability claims can also happen. An example is this. Some months back, my youngest sister was celebrating her 16th birthday, and she and her friends were lodged in an Airbnb because they were supposed to have a sip and paint activity the day after. Now, unfortunately, one of the guests that were in the house, all teenagers, by the way, under 18 that were in the house, one of them was trying to take a shower in the night, and as she walked into the shower room, the glass of the shower fell on her, and the glass broke on her body. She had cuts, on her leg, on her face, and everything. It disrupted the entire, activity for the day. It disrupted everything we planned to do. I was driving around Lagos at about 1 a.m. trying to figure out what to do. But yeah, everybody was basically disoriented. Now, these are the type of guest liabilities that can happen. And in a more advanced country, I could sue for a lot of money for the damage that was done on the young girl, right? But when we asked around, there was no insurance on that property. The property owner, of course, will ask questions. Oh, how did she push the glass? But I mean, if I went to the court of law, it didn't matter how I pushed the glass. It wasn't supposed to fall anyways. But the guest liabilities are things like this that can happen, and guests can sue for, huge amounts of money. And with the way liability is in Nigeria, there is no value. You can't place a value on a human life. So in most cases, it is left open-ended for anyone to make as much demand as they want. That's the unfortunate incident. And with the growing insurance awareness that we begin to see in the country, people are more enlightened about what insurance is. People are more enlightened about their rights. People are more enlightened about what insurance can cover. So you begin to see this. Having an insurance in place, helps you mitigate your lawsuits, your frequencies in liability payouts, and in guest liability claims. Now, for currency and capital risk, income disruption can be very devastating. I mean, we cannot, there's no underestimating that, really. And when your cash flow also serves as your FX remittance buffers. Now, those who invested in before the election in 2023 and those who invested after the election in 2023 can clearly explain this to you. It was a huge turnaround point. Some people cried and some people smiled to the bank. And people who cried are more than those who smiled, right? But one thing we've also known is that whatever the policy is, some people will gain and some people will lose, and this we will see this happen when the currency and capital risk. And that's why there's always this thing that when you have a mindset to do something, especially when it comes to money, do it immediately. A building that you were trying to buy in 2023 at 50 million naira today could be going for as much as 500 million naira. Nothing changed. Same location, same architectural design, same everything that has been promised. But because of the impact of FX in that space, and we know the prices of cement now, there's no subsidy on all of these things. We know what it takes to bring in a ton of sand or iron rods to the site is a whole lot more. And not only that, because of the cost of living has also increased, we also see cost of labor has also significantly increased, and all of these things combines to the currency and capital risk that you will see in the real estate space. So when we move to the next slide and we look at risks that can cripple the real estate portfolio, like I said, physical damage is top of the list. Fire damages, flood, burglary, structural collapse, and in insurance we have specific definitions for all of these things. For example, burglary has been certified to be forceful entry or forceful exit of a property that doesn't belong to the person who has forced their way into the building. We also have income disruption, which is the rental loss. There's the legal and liability risk. You have the construction and development risk. Now, if you are building a property, as long as it exceeds one floor, you should have what we call the contractors all risk insurance that you must have in building a property of that magnitude. There's the regulatory compliance. There are fines. There are lawsuits. Sometimes, because of a simple paper that you cannot provide when there are checks, they can shut down your project, and then you have to go around. And because of the nuances in our market, let's not take that away. You have to rub palms here, rub palms there. There's no need to do that. If you are just, compliant and with insurance backing, you do all that is needed to be done, you are able to, escape all of these things that may happen. There's also the reputational risk that comes with things, and with the use of internet in this side of the world, that is not exactly the best, right? One single event in your property can disrupt your years of hard work. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what hard work you've put in place. It doesn't matter, all the things that you've put in place to mitigate risk. Once they happen and you're unable to provide some sort of you're unable to meet the public expectation, it could cause reputational damage, not just to that particular business, but any other thing you have linked to your name, linked to that property. So for example, somebody has bought a property, a 3-story building, you use it for rental purpose, there is a collapse, and the collapse, a guest is unable to move out of to quickly escape. There is a broken leg, the guest is unable to work for 3 months. It won't be a case of the building collapsed anymore. It will be a case of neglect, of you not being able to provide some sort of relief to the guest that has been there. And that is where insurance comes in. With the property insurance, there are third-party liability extensions. There are personal debt extensions, meaning if the owner of the property even dies, there is some sort of there's some certain amount that is paid to the beneficiary or the next of kin on that property. And without insurance, all of these risks that I've highlighted, they don't just hurt you as a person. They hurt your investments, they hurt your return, they hurt is a lot of heartbreak that comes into play, right? Next slide, please. So how insurance protects your real estate wealth. Like I said, real estate, has proven time and time again that it is a wealth creation tool. Now, asset protection. Your insurance will cover, physical damages to the property. You see fire, flood, burglary, collapse. It should cover income protection where you see loss of rent, business interruption, liability protection in the case of third party, where they've suffered an injury or loss to their property within your property. You have developmental protection, you have the contractors all risk, the engineering cover, all of this are put into play. You have the compliance advantage where you meet legal requirements that shields you from penalties as well. And then when we also look at next slide, please. Yeah. So tailored protection for different investor profiles. Now, depending on your level of investment in the real estate space, there are types of insurances that you should buy. Now, if you are only a property owner, you do not live in the property, all you've done is buy the property, you can just own a property insurance, or we call it a homeowner's insurance, right? It covers the entire building against physical damages. And it also has an extension where you can have an extended policy that covers for loss of rent if you're using the property for rental businesses. Now, if you're in the short-let business or you're an Airbnb owner, you have what we call the property, the liability, the contents, and the all risk cover. Now, the insurance policy you buy will not only cover the structure of the building, it will cover the contents that you have invested into the building to make it look all nice and appealing to your customers. It would also cover, liabilities that may occur, as in the case that I explained. Somebody walks into your property, we've seen cases of POPs falling these days. That is another very good example. A POP falls on your guest within the building. That is, some sort of liabilities on the part of the guest. Now, developers and builders, if you're a developer, if what you do is build, you buy landed property and you build. As a builder, you need a contractor's all risk and engineering policy that secures you. This is a legal requirement, by the way, for anyone building a property. Now, for those who are just building their portfolios, yeah, institutional investors, you invest here, you invest there, and this is something that Keble seriously encourages with the plans that they have. If that is your style of investment, now you are able to bundle your asset with liability and catastrophe cover, and this protects diverse holdings. Like there are different things you can protect on this end. If you own, just a property, you have the homeowners insurance. If you live in the property, you can buy the homeowners and householder insurance policies. If you want just a fire policy, that's fine. Depending on your preference, you look at your risk. If you want just a fire policy on your property, that works. If you want a fire plus burglary policy on your property, that also works. When we look at the Keble approach, right? Keble has a very strategic differentiation, to be honest, compared to what we've seen in the real estate firm. Now, for what we do, or what investors will be doing with Keble, and beyond the access that Keble gives, the true value really lies in the protection that they are also willing to provide to back up that investment. Now, holistic protection packages, and this is designed for those in the diaspora who have, some certain level of realities, their experience with the insurance coverings abroad, they understand what insurance is supposed to cover. And with insurance, with real estate is not a one size fits all. Beautifully, it's there are different aspects to it, there are different investment methodologies to it. So with bundling property and liability and rental income and catastrophe makes it a whole balanced equation for people. Now, when you look at the local market expertise, the on-ground partnership with credible insurers like AXA Mansard, where we navigate not just through Nigerian compliance and also the realities. What we do is to really look at the market realities, to be honest, in everything that we do. And that is why over time, what we've done for our own clients in the space who have, home insurance businesses with us is we've over time given risk advices. We've done risk mitigations to ensure that property are not just insured, they are insured adequately. And that's where you see transparent oversight, risk advisory, valuation updates, claim management, so that investors are never in the dark. One thing we usually advise, if you're insuring your property, don't look at the purchase price, always think of the restatement price. Now, if anything happens to this property today, what would it cost me to bring this same property to stand tomorrow? As we've seen, prices change within 2 minutes. You can buy a block today by 747, and by 749, there's been an increase in the price of that block, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. So we always advise that do not insure your assets, insure them thinking forward. What would it take for me to reinstate this property if an unfortunate incident happens? And that's where we have the AXA survey team, where we send our survey team to the sites of the property. They look at the property. They're able to estimate what the future price or what the future value will be, looking at, a lot of things, the location, of course, the rate at which development is coming into the area and all of that. There's also global great thinking with AXA. We adapt our practices with global practices. We're a global group. Of course, we are able to take lessons from our entities, in other countries. Like I said, they do beautiful things in Morocco. They do beautiful insurance practices in Egypt, and South Africa tops the list for me with what they are doing in their insurance space. Next slide, please. Now, as an investor and as a smart investor, we have, some sort of insurance checklist that we advise that people usually follow. I said earlier that always insure at replacement value, not your purchase price. Purchase price may not always work, especially as we have, FX impacts, inflation going and coming. 1 minute dollar is 1.550, the other minute is 1.6, and before you know it, you also see it drop to 1.14 and the like. So because of the instability that we have in our naira, it's always wise to think forward when thinking about insuring a property. Now, always declare your business use. Insurance business is a terms and conditions business. There are terms and conditions that follow whatever policy it is that you're buying. It is very important that you declare. I mean, one of the principles of insurance we have is the principle of utmost good faith, which states that you must declare all material facts as it relates to the insurance. Now, if you are coming to insure a property, if you are going to use it for Airbnb purposes, it is wise that you declare that. Reason being that when you have a claim and the claim doesn't really jive with you saying that, oh, I live in the apartment alone. And when we look at the circumstances of the claim, that's not the case. Those kind of claims are usually denied, not because they are not covered, but because the purpose of use has been misinterpreted or misrepresented. And when there's a misrepresentation in the policy or an insurance policy, it is usually not acknowledged by the insurance company. Now, when you're buying an insurance company, bundle, your insurance. Make sure you are clear on what you want to insure. You are clear on the level of investments that you have, and you cover all of them. If you have a building, if all you're interested in is protecting the building, know that you want just the building. If you are interested in protecting your guests as they come, you have the liability extension. If you have used them for rental purposes, you're thinking about when there's the property is not habitable, and for that reason your tenants are not able to pay claim, there's that income cover. Leave no gaps on allow for no room for gaps to shake your investment. Now, add political risk and catastrophic cover where relevant. Ask questions, right? Insurance is ABCD. If you ask the questions, do not assume that, make no assumptions with your insurance policy. When you're buying, ask your insurance advisors the necessary questions. What does it cover? Read your policy documents, read everything that it covers. Anything that you think you want to add to your insurance policy, discuss it with your relationship manager, and they are able to advise you adequately on the added extensions that you should have on your policy. Now, review your policy or your portfolio every year. The reason why we've asked that you review your portfolio every year is to meet current market realities. As we've established, properties bought in 2023 are not the same today. So if you bought a property in 2023 at 25 million and you want to insure in 2025 as 25 million, if something happens, God forbid, but if it does happen, you're going to be, at a loss, because there is no way your 25 million can put that structure. I doubt if you would even pass foundation level with 25 million naira. So review your portfolio every year, align it with inflation and FX impacts. Think of the future. Look at do surveys. There are properties similar to what you have within your environment that are newly built. Take surveys from them and use them to revalue, your property. Our survey team also does that, where they, go to survey the property, they survey the environment, and they're able to advise on what the value of the property will be as of date. Now, partner with insurance who pay claims and provide risk advice, which is what AXA does. That's where AXA Mansard comes in. Partner with reliable insurance companies. Now, real estate creates wealth, but insurance is what will preserve that wealth, basically. And I think that's it for me, from how we infuse insurance with the real estate. I will take questions now. I've seen a couple of questions come in, so I will take questions now and provide clarity to some things that we may not know. Thank you so much for your time. It was fun sharing my experience or my knowledge with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we need to give a round of applause to Emanuela one more time. I can see some people. Thank you so much. So there are some things that one thing that I would note is that you say don't look at the purchase price, look at the replacement price, right? People don't. It's very common practice to always look backwards. I bought this at this, but it's always important that real estate is always being repriced, especially in Nigeria, where a lot of factors actually lead to that price increase, right? It could be demand, it could be FX, it could be a lot of things, right? You have to always account for that as you're holding the assets, right? So super important. We have a couple of questions, and I'm just going to jump right into it. Like I mentioned, this conversation is really focused on breaking down some of the questions and that we've been asking concerning this. So these are very common questions that we get. What is the typical timeline for claims processing in property insurance? So For example, if something bad happens, like how long, maybe you can give an example of a fire, for instance. How long does that take for them to get their claims back?
So the typical turnover time for the payment of claim on a property insurance is largely dependent on the circumstances of the loss, right? If you have a simple loss like a storm blows off the roof, which is, seen, it's claims like that will usually take turnaround time of maybe 5 working days or less. Now, when you have situations where there's been a fire incident, first of all, there has to be an investigation to rule out arson. And this is largely dependent on the fire service guys that we partner with to, investigate, to confirm what started the fire, where ignition point is, what the cause is, establish that there is no arson in that situation, because arson is not covered under insurance. If it has been established that it's not a case of arson, the loss assessors are sent to the site. The estimate of repair is shared, because the estimate of repair is dependent on the client. The client shares the estimate of repair to reinstate that property. When you share that with the claims team, an offer is shared, you accept offer. After offer is accepted, 24 to 48 hours for payouts to happen. Now, incidences or situations where it is a little bit elongated is where there's been a death in that situation. Now, in situation where there's been a death, it is a more sensitive situation. We usually look for police reports. There has to be a report to the police station, especially if the deceased is not a member of that household. If the deceased is an external member of the household, which we've seen cases like that happen, it's usually a more sensitive topic. So usually those would take maybe 30 working days at the very maximum. But if all materials are in place, everything, everything is as it should be. Sometimes delays that we experience is usually maybe from clients, maybe of course, it takes a while to mentally understand what has happened, especially when you have a loss of property. It takes a bit of time to come to the insurance company to say, okay, look, this is what has happened. Getting the estimate of repair or of reinstatement of the property can also take a bit of time, but provided that all documents are intact and are available, usually for very little claims, maybe 5 working days, not so much, maybe fire claim, maximum 30 working days turnaround time.
Thank you so much. I think that's very important, because things like this can be very catastrophic for most people, and you want a situation whereby you have a partner that can also listen to you and be able to provide claims when needed. There's another question that comes in. Is insurance expensive? Right. A lot of people are always like, oh my goodness, this, yeah, it's all fine, but like how expensive? What are the numbers here? Are we talking in billions? Because the asset is in billions. What are we looking at in terms of numbers? So you can share that if you can.
Okay. The beautiful thing is, insurance is not as expensive as people see it. Maybe I think it's the insurance people. I think it's the suits we wear that misinterprets what happens. Maybe. I think we wear a lot of fine suits, so that can be very, very, very contradicting to what we call the prices. But like I explained earlier, the concept of how insurance came into play, right? It was the contribution of the many to cater for the unfortunate, incidents of the few. So usually reasonability is put into pricing. I mean, there is no fixed price for insurance. It is, you assess the risk, you look at what you're covering, and you appropriately price. But I can tell you that property insurance can go for as low as 0.25% of the value of the property. Now, the rating of the premium paid is largely on the back of the value of the property. Now, don't look at that, right? Because the higher your property, the more risk-free your property is, the lower the rates you can enjoy. And we have a rating guide within the insurance industry where, some rates are very standard. They are as introduced by regulators, highly regulated pricing. And, residential buildings enjoy one of the lowest, pricing. You can see insurance policies on some properties for as low as 0.18%, which is just a fraction of what has been used to purchase the property. The maximum you will see in some cases maybe 1% of the value of the property for insurance. So insurance is pretty affordable, if I do say so myself.
Thank you. Yes, just it's not like is when I went down the rabbit hole of this, I was extremely shocked at how much insurance compared to, like, if you bought a house of 80 million, right, compared to what you're paying to protect that house, it's nothing, to be honest. It's a drop in the bucket, when it comes to how to protect or thinking of protecting your asset long term, right? One follow-up question people have asked is, it's also as prices go up, because we've seen properties go from 80 million in the market to 100 million, right, or to 150 million. Does that mean that we also need to reprice the premiums that we are paying as well, right? So maybe in year one, year two, we were just paying maybe let's say 500k for year one and 500k in year two, but like for some reason, prices have changed, capital appreciation has taken place. How do we factor that? Is that going to be factored in the premium that we're paying? So are we going to pay a higher premium based on that increase?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, the pricing of insurance on a property is largely on the back of the value of the property. Whatever rate is given to you is, applied to the value. So if you say your property is 80 million naira today, if you've been given a rate of 0.25%, the 0.25 is applied on the 80 million naira. Now, if your property goes up to 260 million naira tomorrow, the same rates can be applied to your 260 million. So that is 0.25 of 60 million. In some cases, depending on the underwriters, how they assess the risk, if there has been some changes, there's been new developments within your environment, or you've also done some risk mitigation upgrades on your building. You fenced your building with electric fence. You have fire extinguisher points located in your house. If you look at this, okay, this is the risk here is slightly mitigated. Your rate can also come down with the increase in value of your property. So your rate is largely on the back. The higher the value sometimes can mean higher premium depending on the rates that has been applied.
Great. So that's important. So it's important for as homeowners, we have to also try and revalue the premiums and speak to the insurance providers to say, okay, here, this is the price, so has increased, by 30% to 50%. We might need to readjust the premium that is being paid to protect my assets holistically. Something that someone asked the other day was, if I do the insurance, does it increase the value of my assets? Like, so does that add value to so compared to, let me put it like this, let's say the property is 80 million here, no insurance, right? And you have another property here, 80 million with insurance. Does that make this way more valuable than this property?
No, insurance doesn't make it more valuable than the other building that is beside it that is also 80 million. However, if you have insurance, it puts you in a more financial position, a better financial position than your neighbor with an 80 million naira house that is not insured. God forbid both of them collapse. You can reinstate. You can easily rebuild with insurance backing. Your neighbor, however, doesn't have that privilege, and that's where they lose. So you are better off with insurance. So while it may not, increase the value of your building per se, it increases your confidence, and it also it protects your financial, your financial standpoint as a person.
Thank you so much. Another question. It said, what level of insurance does Keble offer with co-ownership properties? And would this be a separate purchase? I think I can answer that. The insurance, when you buy properties with Keble, everything is actually embedded together. So we're trying to make sure that we don't come to you later and say, hey, Mr. Frank, I think you need to pay an extra money for insurance. We already baked that in so that you're sort of comfortable with the fact that, okay, anything we are paying it to make sure that, okay, the property is well furnished, all the fees and legal fees are done, all the insurance payments are settled, right? And I think we mentioned earlier that, okay, even going forward, when we are thinking of renting the properties out, right, the payment of insurance on a yearly basis is also taken from the rent, and that has been baked in. So when we are telling you that, okay, net of whatever you're making, let's say you're in Buckingham, for example, the best case scenario was like 2 million naira net, right? That means that we've already accounted for insurance on that side, right? So you're not thinking of additional money and saying, oh, Keble has come again with their new payment plan for me after I've made all the payment before. So I think that's important to note. So yes, you're not thinking of new things. It's also baked into it. Someone asked a question. Emmanuel, are you here? Just checking. Okay, while she's still waiting, I'll just look at a couple of questions.
I'm here, please. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, someone asked, with the rise of shortlets in cities like Lagos, Abuja, Ibadan, does AXA Mansard have custom shortlet insurance packages?
Okay, so like I said, there are different insurance packages for different investors or level of investment. So of course, with the surge in Airbnbs, we have insurance packages that speak to that. Like I said, it then depends on the owners of the properties, the level of insurance they want to do. Some people are only interested in the structure, ensuring the structure of the building, and if that is what an investor prefers, there is the property investment that solely speaks to the structure. Now, if another investor prefers that the building and the contents of the building is insured, there are insurance practices or insurance policies that cover for that. Now, one thing all of these insurance policies have in common is, or one thing that Airbnb does is generate income. So that loss of rent or less of income that will come with the business can find a way to be infused with the property insurance. Now, because Airbnb is usually a business, what we usually would advise is, while you have your property insurance that covers your loss of rent to a limit of amount, or a limit in the amount, what we usually advise is you also get what we call a business interruption policy. Now, a business interruption policy will cover for when there's been loss of income as a result of an unfortunate incident that has happened on a business, right? So yes, there are custom policies that one can, buy if what you use your property for is solely on the back of Airbnb or shortlet rentals.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Someone also asks, how does property insurance safeguard investors over the long term? So 10, 25 years, especially given Nigeria's regulatory environment. Things can shake
So,
up.
of course, again, policies change every now and again. There's always a new policy. There's always an upgrade. I mean, one thing we should appreciate is Nigeria has come a long way in the insurance field. What we've done over the years is learn. We've learned and learned and learned again. We've unlearned and we've relearned in the process. So with coming, what we've done is we've been able to fuse ourselves with even the federal government. That's where you have our regulators sit on the seat of NICOM, where where they are regulators. We push for the regulations. We understand what is expected of from the insurance side in selling or making these products available for the consumers. So over the years, I mean, insurance is something you pay for on a yearly basis. Your insurance is paid for yearly. Now, it sells for long term, but this is largely dependent on you consistently having your property insured. The maximum that your insurance would cover is a maximum of 1 year. You then have to renew that policy. It's like renewing your subscription. You then have to renew that policy to make sure that it has an insurance. So whether you want to own the property for 50 years, whether you want to own it for 100 years, make sure you have an insurance policy on it. And as time goes on, if anything happens to the property that is an unfortunate incident, your insurance will be there to back you up in that space. And if there are regulatory demands, if there are regulatory changes or compliance changes, your insurance will be the first to update you with this information on what has changed, what you need to know, and the actions that you also need to take.
Thank you so much for that. I think the last question is, all real estate investment products in Keble insured? What are the benefits to Keble investors? I think we've spoken a lot about the benefits and how that helps to protect your wealth long term. What we're doing with AXA Mansard is to make sure that all the assets are actually provided, like from a property insurance policy level. All assets are mandated. It's a mandatory thing to have that big thing. Because at the end of the day, what we want to really push long term is capital preservation and wealth preservation as well, right? So we don't want a situation whereby there is any loss and that doesn't sort of cover the investors that have bought into apartments or a co-ownership project. Even if you're buying like a building through Keble, right, we're already mandated to say, okay, an insurance policy is imputed there so that you actually get the benefit of protecting yourself long term. So I think that's really important when you're thinking of buying a property or investing in properties with Keble. Let me see if there are other questions. Questions. I think we've covered most of the questions, right? If there are no additional questions. Okay, someone asks by mascots. He asks, what happens if there were unfortunate incidents within the 1 year period before renewal? I just want to touch on something. There will be no time where we will not renew before the next year. So I just wanted to make sure that that's a big thing. But to answer, Emmanuel, you can help us with that question. For some reason, if there is no renewal, yeah, just put it out there.
So I think what Barry meant to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think what he meant to say is, what happens if there were no unfortunate incidents within the 1 year period before renewal? So what it means is, Barry, what you're asking is, what happens if you've enjoyed peace of mind? If you've enjoyed peace of mind, glory be to God. That's what happens. I mean, like I said, the insurance you pay for it, because when something then happens, that's where we back up. What you pay is a fraction. In fact, I don't even know, is an atom of what you've invested into the property. But when unfortunate incidents come up, what you would have paid out of pocket is what the insurance company would come in to pay, and that's where that financial backing comes into play. So I think in summary, the response to your question is, if nothing happens over the year, if nothing happens within the year, and you've enjoyed peace of mind, is a win-win for us. We don't also want you to have any unfortunate incidents. And if you've enjoyed that, we glorify God on your behalf and we're happy for you. But the benefit to this is, over the years, of course, risk assessors also look at these things. If you've enjoyed, an unfortunate incident-free years, maybe your first year, your second year, your third year, by the time you are renewing again, they are able to then, put perspective into play to say, okay, this is a low-risk environment, customer is a low-risk client, and they're able to reduce the rates that has been applied. So as a first-time, insurance policy holder, the rates that may be applied may be significant, may be standard, looking at you as a new policy holder. But over the years, when when insurance companies, when underwriters have, they've acquitted themselves with your insurance behavior, the behavior of the property or the asset that you've insured, they are able to reduce the rates that have been applied to fit into the risk profile of the client. So that's what happens when there's been no incidents. It then builds a risk profile for that client that has benefits in the future.
By wait at ask, that means the money goes. Oh my goodness. Someone asked, why should we trust AXA Mansard? So I think that's the last question for today.
Why should you trust AXA Mansard? Beautiful. So, first of all, AXA is a global brand, and nobody builds a brand to that level and not puts their reputation at the highest point of their business, right? We've grown a brand. We're present in 53 countries in the world, and we've proven time and time again that we have the capital backing to be able to cater to any level of risk. We participate on a large, on major leagues with the likes of Total Energies, then the Rama Group, and a lot of large businesses within the, within the market. Now, all of our core values also speak to how we, portray ourselves as a company. Top of our list is customer first. We do not joke with our customers at all. Our customers are literally the kings and queens that we worship, because without customers, there is no business. If there is no customer satisfaction, there is no sustainability in the business. So everything that we do, everything that we say is to the customer satisfaction. We ensure that the interest of the customers are put first. We also have integrity at the core of what we do. Integrity matters a lot to us. It's also how we back up our reputation that we speak of. So integrity is one of the reasons why you should trust us. When you also look at our courage, we're a very courageous company. Not only do we do things, we go above and beyond to ensure that we stand out in the crowd. We do things that are not common. We do things that are positively beneficial to to our customers. We ensure that not only do we protect them today, we also predict the future for them. That we were able to cover them in the long run, that they are unable to suffer any loss. And even when they do, the loss is minimal, and we're able to provide the backing that we have promised to them. Another thing is, One AXA. We collaborate on a lot of levels. One AXA is something that binds us together as an insurance company, from the investment side to the general business side, to the life insurance side, to the HMO side. All of these things come together to put our force together as a company. So when one place, has need for backing, the others come up together. We are like, how do I put it? We're like a stack of rubber bands. We hold together, strongly, and our customers, we have testimonials in the market. We have people who have worked with us. We have conglomerates who have done businesses with us. Individuals who have enjoyed. I personally work on the personal line business, which means I interact with individuals like you and I on a daily basis. So customer first again, integrity, our courage are on the top of mind in the businesses that we do. So these are some of the reasons that why you should trust AXA. And really, like they always say, you never know until you try. You're already missing out. So you're welcome to join the winning team. Just give us a trial, and a trial will convince you. I think that's what they say. A trial will convince you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know that this conversations is a little bit different for people that have been on previous conversations. It's slightly different. We'll be doing this regularly, bringing in reputable brands that we're working with, and people that are also involved in the processes of how we source out deals, how we vet deals, how we protect deals as well. So this is one of many. So yes, the conversation were sort of technical, but I think it's also a way to also shed more light on why we're doing these things. And I think protecting your assets is important, protecting for the long haul. I know someone that bought, I think they bought Ibudurura, and she was essentially saying that, hey, this thing is not just for me. She asked, can I transfer it to my children? I'm saying you can even transfer it to your next children, your grandchildren, if you want to, right? People are thinking long term, and for something to last that long, you want to make sure that there is some level of protection that makes it possible, right? So I'm very excited about this. Yes, we'll be more than happy to bring Emanuela back to shed more new stuff that she would like to share with us. And I know that everyone actually learned a lot today, even if it's one thing that you take out is that, the price of yesterday is not the price of today. So that's the basis of everything that we've learned today. But I'm really grateful that everyone came out today to support, to learn, and to also learn about building wealth. We do not take this for granted. And just on behalf of the Keble team, the AXA Mansard team, we're really grateful for everybody. Also remember that I think we mentioned a couple of earlier in the call, we have 3 products that are really suited for individuals that are building long-term income generating, wealth building assets. So if you're thinking about a real estate option that is actually focused on income generation, this is perfect for you. So if you're thinking of more questions, I think you can join the WhatsApp group. It's on the is on the chat box, so you can reach out to anyone. I think one of the team members are always able to, answer you when you need them, when you call on them. I think we also added the numbers as well, so you can call, and we'll be more than happy to answer multiple questions that you have. Once again, thank you so much. I learned a lot, and I want to thank the AXA Mansard team for gracing us today, and thank Emanuela especially for granting us this sectional presentation. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody. Do have a lovely weekend and take care of yourselves. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye,
everyone. Have a
everybody.
good night. Bye.